Swing, swing, dance and lean. It's very easy, come on and just take a chance and shake a feet. Let the music move you.
Kingdom Hearts. Best known as that hit-or-miss crossover bonanza of Disney and Square Enix characters that made kids want to smack each other with cloth-wrapped curtain rods in a parking lot, Kingdom Hearts is otherwise mostly known for the hack-and-slash meets RPG gameplay, and a story so convoluted that even Lost can't compete with it. It's a series that is beloved by fans and gives headaches to anyone coming in fresh and new to the franchise, and for me, it's one of my personal favorite series in gaming that gives me a migraine when I think about it too much. So instead, I'm going to talk about it for a while. Ever since the first game was released back in 2002, I've been a begrudgingly exuberant fan of the Kingdom Hearts franchise. I've spent plenty of time talking with friends and family about the game over the years, and in fact, the very first Valiant discussion I ever uploaded to this very channel was talking about Kingdom Hearts. And, well, part where Boo's like, "You're Mike Wazowski," and Donald's like, "Oh, what? No, I'm not. It should be avoided at all costs. For the better part of 2 decades, I have either enjoyed or tolerated the many entries that this series has produced, from the stellar Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, to the incredibly depressing Aqua Depression Hour, to just about everything in between. I've enjoyed seeing the various Disney properties come to life within this action RPG setting, even if they have little to no bearing on the game's plot. The combat and gameplay changes through the years have kept the franchise feeling relatively fresh, even if they don't always work. And then there's the story. Well, I mean, the story is basically just a fresh hell of convoluted tropes and retcons that even the most dedicated of fans might have trouble deciphering, let alone understanding. But it's our fresh hell of convoluted tropes and retcons that even the most dedicated of fans has trouble fully deciphering, let alone understanding, damn it. Part of why I feel the plot has gotten so convoluted over the years is because they just keep making more games to try and help explain the plot. Every time they make a new game, they answer maybe 2 or 3 questions from previous entries. But that same game then asks another 10 to 12 questions that only help to confuse things even more and make my head hurt. I don't need to know every last detail of Xehanort's dental routine, Nomura. I just want to be able to smack things with a key-shaped club and have it make some semblance of sense. But now, Kingdom Hearts 3 has come and gone. And if you ask me, I'd say it ended the series off on a relatively high note, considering what it could have ended on. A lot of disparate plot threads were closed, there was plenty of fan service for all of us who have slogged through the series to get to this point, and the Remind DLC offers a lot more content in the form of singular fan-requested fights, as well as a tease for what's to come after this saga of games ends. Best of all, KH3 lets you help Little Chef to give everyone in Twilight Town diarrhea thanks to all of the ingredients you scavenged out of the sewers. Ba-da-ba-ba-bleh. But here's the thing. I said a moment ago, Kingdom Hearts 3 was the end of the franchise. That's not really true. Rather, it's the end of what's being called the Dark Seeker saga, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. I have sought the darkness and found it wanting. What this means is that we're likely going to be getting more Kingdom Hearts in the future, which, given the series' history, means more games to help explain everything that's going on, new gameplay mechanics that help expand the gameplay of the franchise in confusing and oftentimes just convoluted ways, and of course, new and likely even more convoluted plot points that are at best hard to follow. And that's exactly what we got immediately following Kingdom Hearts 3. Only this time, it's Guitar Hero.
2, 3, 4.
Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory is a rhythm game developed by Indie Zero, who many Square Enix fans may know from their work on the Theater Rhythm series of games featuring Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest on 3DS. Like the games that came before it, Melody of Memory turns several of the many songs of the Kingdom Hearts franchise into rhythm stages, where players need to press buttons to the beat in order to achieve a high score. But instead of playing for a fake crowd who boos you for trying your best to shred your way through a heavy metal cover of The Devil Went Down to Georgia, you instead have a team of 3 teenagers and/or anthropomorphic animals travel across a musical staff and beat up enemies to the beat of One Winged Angel. In the simplest of terms, this game is a combination of Guitar Hero and Theater Rhythm, but with significantly more goofy. Since this is a rhythm game, the star attraction for fans of the franchise is undoubtedly going to be the songs. And Melody of Memory features over 140 songs, all from the various worlds found in every Kingdom Hearts game before it, with most worlds offering 2 songs to play through as well as a selection of songs from the various musical performances that have toured the world. With 3 difficulty levels, those being beginner, standard, and proud, a bunch of collectibles to help advance the gameplay or unlock items in various galleries, and a couple of extra modes to help make things a little bit more interesting, the game does offer players a lot to play while they relive some of the greatest music in the series. You'll be able to relive some of your favorite songs in a variety of game modes, but the best place to start is World Tour, since it's effectively the story mode for the game, and playing through it unlocks every song available to play. You travel from planet to planet, segmented into small groupings according to which game they originally appeared in, play the songs with some added little bonus objectives, and hopefully earn enough stars to advance to the next cluster of planets and their songs. As you play, you'll unlock 4 teams to play as, all of which play the same but offer a bit of variety to the visuals. While you start things off with Team Classic, consisting of Sora, Donald, and Goofy, there's also Team Days, consisting of Roxas, Xion, and Axel, Team BBS, consisting of Aqua, Ventus, and Terra, and then Team DDD, which, Okay, I feel like I need to prepare you for this. If you're a fan of the series, you might feel like I do with this and find it genuinely hilarious. No, Team DDD does not include the plumpy penguin poser from Kirby. Instead, DDD has Riku as the lead character of the team, the main one that you're playing as, and they paired him up with 2 Dream Eaters. They paired Riku up with 2 Digimon instead of literally anyone else. They could have paired him up with King Mickey, but they decided to have Mickey have a special bonus item instead that lets him join your team of 3, and he'll occasionally ninja flip his way to the front of your allies to take out some enemies, and that's it. They could have paired him up with Sora and Kairi, or maybe Ansem and Yensid, or hell, just have him fight alongside Replica Riku and Darkness Riku and get a Riku trifecta in there, but nope! Instead, Nomura basically has him cosplaying a Team Rocket grunt and gave him a Zubat and a Meowth.
Meowth, that's right!
Now, am I ragging on this particular team up because Dream Drop Distance was as good as wearing a pair of pants that someone soiled a week ago and never washed before returning them? Yeah, but it still just feels like a very missed opportunity to me, and it's not even the only one in the game. Let's talk about the song selection for a moment. Along with the music from many of the major worlds from the games, there's various themes that we all know and love, piano arrangements of songs, and more. But a few worlds are noticeably absent from the many that you can visit. One such world that I kinda enjoyed from the original game was Deep Jungle, but the world and its music is entirely absent from this game. But one world whose exclusion I find even funnier is from Kingdom Hearts 2. Fans of the series may remember a particularly despised level from that game. One that completely changed how the game played and is commonly seen as one of the worst additions in the series, known for changing up gameplay styles on a whim. The gold standard of bad levels to avoid, if at all possible within Kingdom Hearts games going forward, and that level was none other than the Pride Lands.
Huh?
I'm kidding. You know it's Atlantica.
Swing and sway, we'll dance and we'll play. Now it's very easy, come on and just take a chance and shake a feet. Let the music move you, you can do it!
The level was literally a rhythm game in itself, and yet none of the songs from that world are in this game. The world and battle music from Kingdom Hearts 1's Atlantica are here, and they even included a specially curated memory dive track for Part of Your World, but fuck you if you were expecting to have a little bit of finny fun. But that's not even the worst part of the game for me. You see, not only did I complete the world tour to get this video, I earned the platinum trophy in the game, which means I had to play every song in the game at least 3 times, once on each difficulty, and one of those worlds, from Kingdom Hearts 3, was Arendelle. I had to play every song in this game a minimum of 3 times across the game's World Tour mode in order to earn the Platinum Trophy. And for some reason, the game decided to make the Kingdom Hearts 3 worlds only include 1 song each. For most of them, they have you play through one of the world's songs while a curated selection of the level's cutscenes plays in the background. But not Arendelle. Guess what song they put in for the game? Don't bother guessing, I'll tell you, it's Let It Go. Arendelle is the only world in the entire game where you play a song from the movie instead of the games themselves. Honestly, I'm just sick of hearing that song so much that I genuinely just played an instance of this level without headphones or volume turned on at all. I honestly wouldn't have minded this if they had done like they did with Part of Your World, where you can just choose to play it in track selection after it's unlocked rather than as part of the game's story mode. But I guess Disney is just gonna shove that song down our throats for the rest of time, so we're just gonna have to live with it. Alright, I'm done whining about that song. I should probably actually talk about how the game plays and stop talking about a song I genuinely just do not like. So, how does the game play? Let me tell you every command that you will be forced to use in this game, and hopefully that will help illuminate one of the main problems I have with this rhythm game. As your trio of heroes and/or Pokemon moves down the track, you'll have to input a surprising number of commands to dispatch Heartless, Nobodies, Dream Eaters, and Unversed. First, there's the standard attack, which can be done with 3 different buttons, R1, L1, and X. But that's just for a single attack. Sometimes you need to attack 2 or even 3 enemies at the same time, requiring you to press all 3 of these buttons at once. And that's just for attacking. There's also magic and special attacks, which are represented with the triangle button and special crystals that appear on the track, occasionally comboed with attacking, meaning you press triangle and at least one attack button. There's the need to jump over enemy projectiles with circle, jump and then attack by pressing circle and then an attack button. And then there's gliding! Gliding is done by jumping and holding circle, moving your character along a track of notes, and on top of that, your party members who are still on the ground might still need to attack. So for those of you keeping score at home, that is 5 different buttons on one controller for 10 different prompts, where the whole point of said genre is to present an easy-to-use system of inputs that can be stacked on top of one another more and more to create difficulty, not force you to do more things with less buttons and mask that as difficulty. And that is exactly what this game does! The control scheme in Melody of Memory is no more difficult than any other real rhythm game. It just is a lot more complex and difficult to master at first, and that might turn a lot of people off. But the more you practice and use it, the better you understand the commands and the better you get used to the song. But the controls are only one issue I have with the gameplay. Those are certainly a sticking point for me, because I feel less inputs could ultimately benefit this game. But the thing that hurts this game just as much is the inconsistency within the songs themselves. In Guitar Hero, if I play a song on easy and bump the difficulty up to normal, the button prompts don't really change. I still use the same 5 or 6 fret commands while strumming at the appropriate time, and that's how I rack up points. The only thing that changes are sometimes the arrangements of notes, but that's more them adding notes in between the previous ones, and it's still just me tapping the fret buttons and strumming. In Melody of Memory, thanks to the wide variety of command inputs and the multiple functions that some of them serve, changing the difficulty from beginning to standard, let alone standard to proud, can give you 3 distinct and completely unique versions of that song. Sure, you'll have some sections that remain the same and maybe a few more enemies than before for higher difficulties, but entire other sections of the song can just change on a whim in terms of where enemies are placed, and it makes for a very inconsistent experience overall. And it isn't just enemy placement either, but the way that the enemies behave that is a major issue within this game. Take this enemy, for instance. Fans of the franchise may know that this little buzzard-looking guy is actually the Gargoyle Heartless, first introduced in Kingdom Hearts 1 in Halloween Town. And it's enemies like this that can fly that are the problem here. For you see, because they can fly, there's technically 3 ways you can destroy them in this game. One minute, you might just simply attack it, hitting the R1, L1, or X button at the appropriate time. But what about when it's flying, and you have to jump at it instead? Because that happens. Or how about when you need to use magic on it? Or how about the fact that you might have to do any one of these 3, or even up to all 3, at different intervals in the same level? For one enemy. The inconsistencies of the enemies is one of those confusing elements that didn't really need to be confusing, and could very easily have just been fixed. Instead of making it so one enemy can have a potential of 3 different inputs to take it out, classify each enemy in each level as having one specific input. That way it's consistent throughout the game. Shadow Heartless are only used for main attacks. The Gargoyles are only used maybe for flying. You have like the Tower Heartless for like, I don't know, magic or something. You see, the thing that I'm talking about here, this consistency, the game already understands it. It just doesn't use it often. Sometimes you'll run into a large body or defender Heartless, and they have the fun mechanic of needing to be hit multiple times to take them out. Hit them once, they bounce back a bit on the staff, and you have to hit them again, with the number of total hits to take them out being displayed above their heads when you hit them. No matter how many of these enemies you encounter in a level, they will always require multiple hits, and you only hit them with the attack buttons. That's it! You want to know the best part though? Everything I just talked about, for however long that was, the weird controls, the random enemy placement, and the majority structure of the game, yeah, that's only one type of gameplay for this rhythm game. For the majority of the game, you'll be playing what are called field battles. These levels where you run down a track and take out enemies to the beat as you go. But alongside that, there are 3 other ways to play the game, those being memory dives, boss battles, and versus mode. Oh, okay, so it's more like 2.5. You'll see what I mean in a minute. I briefly mentioned memory dives a little bit ago when talking about Atlantica and Part of Your World, but the basic gist of the memory dive is your trio flies through a track inputting commands, those being 1, 2, or 3 hits, flicking an analog stick in a specific direction, or holding onto a note for an extended period like you would in Guitar Hero. All of this goes on while a sequence of story scenes or cutscenes from the games plays in the background, and these are among the easiest songs to play in the game. The boss battles play very similar to the memory dives, but instead of just flying along a track and watching cutscenes from the game, you instead have a health bar and get an in-engine fight scene against said boss while you input commands. Occasionally some of these notes will get stinky, where it's up to you to hit as many of them in proper sequence as you can, and once you're done with the rhythm part of that song, it'll temporarily pause giving you inputs so the boss can attack in-game, and the better you do in the dark zone, the less likely you are to take damage. Get through the song without taking too much damage, and you win. I mean, it's basically a rhythm game boss battle. What did you expect? A fight with Evil X number 3 Todd? Then there's versus mode, which is fine. You can do it online or offline against another person, or just face off against various computer opponents. And as you play through any of the field battles available to you in the game, you slowly fill up a meter and send attacks or disadvantages to your opponent. The ultimate goal being get the best combo and get the most points. You don't get to choose what attacks you send to your opponent, and some of them are honestly just kind of fun, but otherwise it's just more field battles, but slightly more annoying. It's more of an additional mode rather than a whole other playstyle, which is where the 2.5 came in earlier. If anything, versus mode is terrible simply because anytime you activate a power-up, get more points than your opponent, get less points than your opponent, or just about any other instance that requires some form of call-out, you get to listen to this.
Incoming trick! Incoming trick! 2 tricks activated! Whoa, be careful!
And you know, if we're doing this, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention this at least once. But there are actually 2 other ways that you can play the various levels. Yeah, I'm still not done talking about the gameplay. It just won't end. Hidden behind a button prompt in the level select mode, there are 3 different modes of play that can be toggled on at any time. Standard, which I've already discussed at length, 1 button mode, and performer. 1 button mode is just that. You press a single button in time with the enemies coming at you on screen, and simply hold it down to glide or hit continuous notes in memory dives and boss battles. You don't have to worry about controlling your flight or attacking while in the middle of flight, and it makes the game 1,000 times easier and 1,000,000 times less infuriating, especially when trying to go for platinum completion. Performer mode, meanwhile, basically does the opposite, adding more enemies and more button sequences on top of the already enemy-heavy button prompt extensive gameplay, and as such it should be avoided like the plague. Aside from like 1 or 2 very minor things about the game, like synthesizing items to help you collect a bunch of PNGs essentially, this is basically everything you'll be doing in the game. That was a lot to talk about. But you know what kind of sucks for me? You want to know why this review still has however long it has left on the video? There's still something I haven't talked about yet. Yeah, all that talk about how the game plays and the fact that you can't play Swim This Way, but you can sure as hell play Let It Go. We haven't even talked about the story yet. Yeah, there's a story. Leave it to Nomura to add a convoluted story to a rhythm game of all things, and it's not even just like a fun side story or anything. No, this is crucial plot development for the future of the Kingdom Hearts franchise. Throughout World Tour, you'll occasionally come across a little movie, one that details a small part of the convoluted story of Kingdom Hearts, but all narrated by Kairi. It turns out this whole time, Kairi went into a deep sleep where she created a dream world from her memories of Sora in order to search for clues about where he went after he Thanos'd himself out of the game at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3.
I don't feel so good.
So Kairi takes a nap and the organization Reject Squad here pokes at her brain for a bit, but they only manage to poke the right part of their brain after they've been subjected to Kairi's internal mixtape of all the music from the games, so brain surgeons these guys are not. I guess it's good they went into cardiology. Anyway, Kairi eventually comes face to face with the man who murdered her, and rightfully decides to try and beat his ass into the dirt. Or water floor, only for him to prove that her time training in Merlin's hyperbolic time chamber clearly wasn't enough and he easily overpowers her. But then, somehow, Sora just turns up and takes control of her body to beat him for her. You know, they've had a chance to make Kairi important since the first game, and they could have made her even more so in what is effectively Kairi's game, but no. Why do I expect anything from them in this series anymore? I don't know. So just before Kairi wakes up, she's reminded about how she used to live in Radiant Garden and that at one point Xehanort said other world to her, and like that's basically it. That's what this whole flashback sequence is all about. So that when she wakes up and tells Ansem and the Rowdy Rough boys here about her dream, she can say other world to them, and they spend the next 5 minutes like just repeating it ad nauseum. I feel like even the Kingdom Hearts writers can't believe their shit at this point, and they made the script repeat what they were told as some form of protest. If you worked on the script of Melody of Memory and want to confirm that this is true, I don't know, send up a signal flare and we'll send writing consultants to you to help. Anyway, it's at this point that the fairy godmother from Cinderella walks in with Riku because this isn't buck wild enough yet, and she takes Kairi and Riku to talk to this. Riku tells her about a dream that he had about a modern metropolis, and lo and behold, it's the city from Verum Rex, the video game that Rex is obsessed with in Toy Story World and Kingdom Hearts 3. So in one final act of not letting Kairi do shit despite this being a game that's supposed to star her, the orb sends Riku to this fictional world and Kairi just hangs out with Aqua for a while. The end. So, believe it or not, the story for Kingdom Hearts Tunes for Thought is one of the least convoluted things of this whole game. I know, I'm kind of shocked too, but that doesn't mean it's as simple to understand as Goodnight Heart-Shaped Moon. Remember those recap scenes I mentioned a little bit ago? Well, those aren't just a handy way for them to recap the story for people who haven't played through all the games in the franchise. They're directly related to the plot of this game. Kingdom Hearts has never really done well at telling a story, but this is just a whole other level of what the fuck. I may have been more forgiving of some of the weirder parts of the plot if they had spaced them out more gradually, but having basically 90% of this game's story be this gigantic, mostly cinematic exposition dump for what's to come reeks of being poorly written. What's more, all of the story leading up to that is just segmented recaps of the entire series leading up to that point in between Mickey Mouse's Toon Review. It just makes the gameplay feel even more disjointed and unconnected from the story in my opinion. And, I mean, that's it. That's everything about this. That's what this is. That's what this is. A lot of songs, a lot of tedium, and a whole heck of a lot of confusing control schemes. If you ask me, if the game were to stick to one of 3 of the main playstyles for the game, it would be a much more memorable and cohesive experience. If they had spaced out the story a bit more instead of just dumping it all on the end and forcing you to play through hours and hours of songs that you may or may not care for, it would have been a better game in my opinion. But it wouldn't really be a Kingdom Hearts game without some needless diversion from the primary gameplay loop and story. Now would it? So, overall, what did I think of Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory? Well, as I said, it's a lot. The control scheme could have benefited from less inputs and more consistency with enemy placements. And having an hour-and-a-half long post-credit scene for the game that acts as the game's story in a rhythm game completely ruins any sort of impact or importance it honestly may have had to me, and will likely just be explained in a 5-minute cutscene in the next Kingdom Hearts game, so what was the point? That said, if you're a fan of Kingdom Hearts like I am, this is just a fun way to experience one of the best aspects of the entire game series, that being the music. It might be a bit tough to get the hang of at first, unlike other rhythm games like Beat Saber or Guitar Hero, which have simple and easy to pick up and play mechanics. But the song list this game offers, and the admittedly fun to master way of experiencing said music, help make this an experience worth playing in my book. And honestly, you don't have to be like me and play everything in the World Tour mode just to fully experience it. If you want to just play it on easy, go ahead. The only reason I played all of it was to get the Platinum Trophy. I will say that this is very much one for invested fans of Kingdom Hearts though. If you go into this wanting it to be your first Kingdom Hearts game, you might get like a nice overview of the story and get to listen to some lovely music along the way, but you'll miss out on some of the stuff that makes Kingdom Hearts truly special. Plus, the ending will have you even more confused than someone like me who actually understands about 90% of what's going on, so, proceed with caution, newbies. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you all so very much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Subscribe, do all that other YouTube-y stuff down there. Follow me on Twitter, where I post the occasional poll for upcoming videos, as well as dumb things like this. And I will see all of you in the next video. Take care.